A U.S. Presidential Library Guide. Chapter 1. U.S. Presidential Libraries. An article and list of presidential libraries at archives.gov/presidential-libraries. hoover.archives.gov. Herbert Hoover Library. fdrlibrary.org. Franklin D. Roosevelt Library. trumanlibrary.gov. Harry S. Truman Library. eisenhowerlibrary.gov. Dwight D. Eisenhower Library. jfklibrary.archives.gov. John F. Kennedy Library. lbjlibrary.archives.gov. Lyndon B. Johnson Library. nixonlibrary.gov. Richard Nixon Library. fordlibrarymuseum.gov. Gerald R. Ford Library. jimmycarterlibrary.gov. Jimmy Carter Library. reaganlibrary.gov. Ronald Reagan Library. bush41library.archives.gov. George Bush Library. clintonlibrary.gov. William J. Clinton Library. George W. Bush Library.gov. George W. Bush Library. obamalibrary.gov. Barack Obama Library. trumplibrary.gov. Donald J. Trump Library. advisethepresident.archives.gov. Step into the Oval Office and take on the role of one of the President's most trusted advisors. Presidential Library websites. archives.gov/presidential-libraries/contact/libraries.html, Presidential Libraries, links to U.S. presidential libraries that are part of the National Archives and Records Administration Program. ajmuseum.tusculum.edu, President Andrew Johnson Museum and Library, dedicated to the 17th President of the United States. Contains a biography, a timeline of his life, detailed collection of the papers of his presidency and a list of related links. bush41.org, George Bush 41 Presidential Library and Museum, George Bush, 41st President, 1988–1992. clintonfoundation.org, Clinton Presidential Center, Bill Clinton, 42st President, 1993–2001. A showcase of the Clinton administration's legacy. fdrlibrary.marist.edu, the Franklin D. Roosevelt Library and Museum, 32nd President, 1933–1945. fordlibrarymuseum.gov, Gerald R. Ford Library and Museum, 38th President, 1974–1977. hoover.archives.gov, Herbert Hoover Presidential Library and Museum, 31st President, 1929–1933. jfklibrary.org, John F. Kennedy Library and Museum, 35th President, 1961–1963. jimmycarterlibrary.gov, the Jimmy Carter Library, 39th President, 1977–1981. kansasheritage.org/abilene/ictr.html, Eisenhower Center, Dwight D. Eisenhower, 34th President, 1953–1961. lbjlibrary.org, Lyndon Baines Johnson Library and Museum, 36th President, 1963–1969. lincolnlibraryandmuseum.com, Abraham Lincoln Presidential Library and Museum, devoted to telling the life story of the 16th President. nixonlibrary.gov, the Richard Nixon Library and Museum, 37th President, 1969–1974. rbhayes.org, Rutherford B. Hayes Presidential Center, 19th President, 1877–1881. reaganlibrary.archives.gov, Ronald Reagan Presidential Library, 40th President, 1981–1989. trumanlibrary.org, Truman Library Museum, Harry S. Truman, 33rd President, 1945–1953. Chapter 2. Presidential libraries by U.S. State at aam-us.org/about-museum/find-a-museum. Presidential libraries by U.S. State. Georgia. Jimmy Carter Presidential Library and Museum. Atlanta, GA. Iowa. Hoover Presidential Library and Museum. West Branch, IA. Illinois. Obama Presidential Center. Chicago, IL. Abraham Lincoln Presidential Library and Museum. Springfield, IL. Massachusetts. John F. Kennedy Presidential Library and Museum. Boston, MA. Michigan. Gerald R. Ford Library and Museum. Grand Rapids, MI. Missouri. Harry S. Truman Presidential Library and Museum. Independence, MO. Texas. George H.W. Bush Presidential Library and Museum. College Station, TX. George W. Bush Presidential Library. Dallas, TX. Virginia. Woodrow Wilson Presidential Library. Stanton, VA. Presidential Library websites. jimmycarterlibrary.gov. hoover.archives.gov. obama.org. presidentlincoln.illinois.gov. jfklibrary.org. fordlibrarymuseum.gov. trumanlibrary.org. bush41.org. georgewbushlibrary.smu.edu. woodrowwilson.org. Chapter 3. An article and list of where presidential papers are located at en.wikipedia.org/wiki/presidential_library_system. An article about the network of presidential libraries in the United States. The Presidential Library System is a nationwide network of 15 libraries administered by the Office of Presidential Libraries, which is part of the National Archives and Records Administration, NARA. These are repositories for preserving and making available the papers, records, collections, and other historical materials of every President of the United States from Herbert Hoover, the 31st President from 1929–1933 to the present. Some libraries where presidential papers are stored are as follows. George Washington. Fred W. Smith National Library for the Study of George Washington at Mount Vernon. Mount Vernon, Virginia. John Adams Stone Library at Adams National Historical Park. Quincy, Massachusetts National Park Service, NPS, website. Thomas Jefferson Robert H. Smith International Center for Jefferson Studies at Monticello. Open to public 1994 Charlottesville, Virginia Thomas Jefferson Foundation website. James Madison The Papers of James Madison at Alderman Library. Opened in 1937, The Papers of James Madison went digital, April 28, 2010. Charlottesville, Virginia University of Virginia Montpelier. Montpelier. Opened to public 1984, Montpelier Station Virginia National Trust for Historic Preservation Montpelier. James Madison Museum. Opened to public 2013 Orange, Virginia James Madison Memorial Fellowship Foundation Museum. James Monroe Museum and Memorial Library. Opened to public 1966 Fredericksburg, Virginia University of Mary Washington website. Highland. Opened to public 1931 Simeon, Virginia College of William and Mary website. John Quincy Adams Stone Library at Adams National Historical Park. Opened to public 1870 Quincy, Massachusetts NPS website. Andrew Jackson The Papers of Andrew Jackson at Hoskins Library. Opened to public 1987 Knoxville, Tennessee University of Tennessee at Knoxville. 7 The Hermitage. Opened to public 1894 Nashville, Tennessee Andrew Jackson Foundation. 8 Martin Van Buren National Historic Site. Opened to public October 26, 1974 Kinderhook, New York NPS. 9 William Henry Harrison Berkeley Plantation. Opened to public 1940s Charles City, Virginia Berkeley Plantation. 10. John Tyler Sherwood Forest Plantation. Opened to public 1970s Charles City, Virginia Sherwood Forest Plantation Foundation. 11. James K. Polk President James K. Polk Home and Museum. Opened to public 1929 Columbia, Tennessee James K. Polk Memorial Association. 12. Zachary Taylor National Cemetery. Opened to public 1928 Louisville, Kentucky National Cemetery Administration. 13. Millard Fillmore House. Opened to public 1975 East Aurora, New York Aurora Historical Society. 14. Franklin Pierce Homestead. Opened to public 1920s Hillsborough, New Hampshire State of New Hampshire. 15. James Buchanan Papers at the Historical Society of Pennsylvania. Gift of the Buchanan family, transferred to the Historical Society, c. 1895-1897 Philadelphia, Pennsylvania Historical Society of Pennsylvania. 15. Wheatland, James Buchanan House. Opened to public 1930s Lancaster, Pennsylvania James Buchanan Foundation. 16. Abraham Lincoln Presidential Library and Museum. Opened to public in 2004 25 Springfield, Illinois State of Illinois. 17. Andrew Johnson President Andrew Johnson Museum and Library. Opened to public 1993 Tusculum, Tennessee Tusculum College. 17. Andrew Johnson National Historic Site. Opened to public 1993 Greenville, Tennessee NPS. 18. Ulysses S. Grant Presidential Library. Opened to public October 15, 1966 Starkville, Mississippi State University Library. And Ulysses S. Grant Association. 18. Ulysses S. Grant National Historic Site. Opened to public 1989 Grantwood Village, Missouri NPS. 19. Rutherford B. Hayes Presidential Center. Opened to public 1916 Fremont, Ohio Historical Society. And Hayes Presidential Center, Inc. 20. James A. Garfield National Historic Site. Opened to public 1998 Mentor, Ohio NPS. And Western Reserve Historical Society. 21. Chester Allen Arthur State Historic Site. Opened to public 1950s Fairfield, Vermont Agency of Commerce and Community Development. 22 and 24 Grover Cleveland Birthplace. Opened to public March 18, 1913 Caldwell, New Jersey Division of Parks and Forestry and Grover Cleveland Birthplace Memorial Association. 22 and 24 Seeley G. Mudd Manuscript Library. Opened to public October 16, 1976 Princeton, New Jersey Princeton University. 23 Benjamin Harrison Presidential Site. Opened to public 1970s Indianapolis, Indiana Arthur Jordan Foundation. 25 William McKinley Presidential Library and Museum. Memorial/grave site opened to the public September 1907 Canton, Ohio Stark County Historical Society. 26 Theodore Roosevelt Houghton Library. Collection donated in 1943 Cambridge, Massachusetts Harvard University. 26 The Theodore Roosevelt Center at Dickinson State University. Launched in 2009 Dickinson, ND Dickinson State University. 26 Theodore Roosevelt Birthplace National Historic Site. Opened to public 1923 Manhattan, New York City, New York NPS. 27 William Howard Taft National Historic Site. Opened to public 1970s Cincinnati, Ohio NPS. 28 Woodrow Wilson Presidential Library. Opened to the public in 1990 Stanton, Virginia Woodrow Wilson Presidential Library Foundation. 28 Woodrow Wilson Center. Chartered by Congress in 1968 Washington, D.C. Woodrow Wilson Presidential Library Foundation. 28 Seeley G. Mudd Manuscript Library. Opened to public October 16, 1976. Princeton, New Jersey. Princeton University. 29 Warren G. Harding Home and Memorial. Opened to the public in February 1926. Marion, Ohio History Connection. 29 Warren G. Harding Presidential Center. Opened to the public on May 12, 2021. 10 Ohio History Connection. 30 Calvin Coolidge Presidential Library and Museum. Opened to the public in 1956. Northampton, Massachusetts. Forbes Library. 30 President Calvin Coolidge State Historical Site. Opened to the public in 1957. Plymouth Notch, Vermont. State of Vermont. 31 Herbert Hoover Presidential Library and Museum. Dedication August 10, 1962. Rededicated August 8, 1992. West Branch, Iowa National Archives and Records Administration, NARA. 32 Franklin D. Roosevelt Presidential Library and Museum. Dedicated June 30, 1941. Rededicated June 30, 2013. Hyde Park, New York. NARA. 33 Harry S. Truman Presidential Library and Museum. Dedicated on July 6, 1957. Rededicated December 9, 2001. Independence, Missouri. NARA. 34 Dwight D. Eisenhower Presidential Library, Museum, and Boyhood Home. Dedicated on May 1, 1962. Rededicated on October 7, 2019. Abilene, Kansas. NARA. 35 John F. Kennedy Presidential Library and Museum. Dedicated on October 20, 1979. Rededicated October 29, 1993. Boston, Massachusetts. NARA. 36 Lyndon B. Baines Johnson Library and Museum. Dedicated on May 22, 1971. Austin, Texas. NARA. And the University of Texas at Austin. 37 Richard Nixon Presidential Library and Museum. Dedicated on July 19, 1990. Rededicated October 14, 2016. Yorba Linda, California. NARA and Richard Nixon Foundation. 38 Gerald R. Ford Presidential Museum. Dedicated on September 18, 1981. Rededicated April 17, 1997. Grand Rapids, Michigan. NARA. Gerald R. Ford Presidential Library. Dedicated on April 27, 1981. Ann Arbor, Michigan. 39 Jimmy Carter Library and Museum. Dedicated on October 1, 1986. Atlanta, Georgia. NARA. 40 Ronald Reagan Presidential Library. Dedicated on November 4, 1991. Simi Valley, California. NARA. 41 George H.W. Bush Presidential Library and Museum. Dedicated on November 6, 1997. College Station, Texas. NARA. And Texas A&M University. 42 Bill William J. Clinton Presidential Center and Park. Dedicated on November 18, 2004. Little Rock, Arkansas. NARA. 43 George W. Bush Presidential Center. Dedicated on April 25, 2013. Dallas, Texas. NARA. And Southern Methodist University. 44 Barack Obama Presidential Library Digital, NARA Facilities. NARA. 44 Barack Obama Presidential Center. Scheduled to open in the mid-2020s. Chicago, Illinois. 26 Obama Foundation. 27 and the University of Chicago. 28. 45 Donald J. Trump Presidential Library and Planning. NARA. 45 Donald J. Trump Presidential Center. Locations of other presidents' papers. Grover Cleveland and Woodrow Wilson left their papers to Princeton University, where they may be found at the Seeley G. Mudd Manuscript Library. The Theodore Roosevelt Association collected Theodore Roosevelt's papers and donated them to Harvard University in 1943, where they reside at its Widener and Houghton libraries. James Buchanan left his papers to the Historical Society of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia, where they may still be found. The Papers of Andrew Jackson is a project sponsored by the University of Tennessee at Knoxville to collect Andrew Jackson's papers on microfilm. A microfilm edition of Martin Van Buren's papers was produced at Pennsylvania State University in 1987. A digital edition of the papers of Martin Van Buren is being produced at Cumberland University.